Hello, this is Luke Eastwood again. This is my first video of 2021. I hope the new year is starting well for you. It's going well so far, not very far into it. Well, this is only the fourth day. So anyway, today I want to talk about the subject of tolerance. A bit of a difficult one, because everyone has different ideas about what that means. So what does tolerance really mean? I would say you might want to start from the point of view of democracy, which basically means that people have to accept the will of the majority, certainly when it comes to politics, to the rules of society, and to the policies that are implemented by the government. In reality, we only get to vote on this, say, every couple of years at the minimum, usually every 4 or 5 years if governments serve their full terms. But whether you like it or not, you have to accept that in a civilized society, you have to tolerate a government that maybe you didn't vote for. If more than the minimum amounts, usually 50%, vote for Party X and you voted for Party Y, you may hate Party X, but you just have to deal with it. That's the rules. And that's the founding principles of democracy, really, that you have to tolerate views that you don't really like, because it's what the majority have chosen, and you have to respect that. A recent, obviously, example of this not going so well is Brexit. People are going crazy over it, and the sad fact is that, pardon me, the majority of people, a small, slim majority, did vote for Brexit to happen. Maybe they're wrong, maybe they're not, who knows? But people that want to just shout this down and stop it, that they're not respecting the will of the majority. They're not respecting or tolerating what has been selected by the majority of the British people. So I think, regardless of whether you agree with it or not, you have to accept it. That's just how it goes. So, I mean, if you take that down from the political level to a personal level, tolerance really is about accepting opinions that you don't agree with. And in some cases, it might be opinions that you really dislike, or you might even hate. That only goes so far, obviously. When it comes to criminality or extreme viewpoints of hatred, you're not going to tolerate someone that thinks murdering people is a good idea, or you're not going to tolerate people in the KKK who want to go around torching the homes of black people and running around with fiery crosses. But I mean, most people aren't going to come across those type of people. The reality of it is these kind of extremists aren't very large in number. The world is certainly not, in Ireland or in Britain, where I've lived a long time, you're not going to find the place crawling with Nazis. Of course, there are some extremists, but they're actually quite small in number in truth. So, in the most case, you're talking about toleration of views which probably don't border on Nazism or anything like that. But even so, you see people getting very irate over other people's viewpoints. And that brings me on to the whole area of wokeness. The idea of being woke seemed like a good idea, in that having an awareness of other people, of being thoughtful, of being respectful of other people's beliefs, backgrounds, preferences, etc., and moving towards a more equal and tolerant society. So in principle, it's actually a pretty good idea, but unfortunately, I'd be one of those people that would say it's become out of control. Of course, not everyone will agree with me on that, and you're entitled to your opinion. If you don't agree, that's fine with me. But some people watching this may wish to cancel me for having said that, for saying that very thing, that the cancel culture, that wokeness has accelerated to a point where it's very difficult to say anything at all without being criticised. And in a strange way, cancel culture is in the name of tolerance and inequality, and has become actually the opposite. It's become intolerant and seeking to censor and silence anybody who doesn't follow the woke viewpoint exactly. And I consider that a serious threat to freedom of speech. Many countries around the world pride themselves on giving people freedom of speech. Many democracies would regard that as central to their belief, to the way of life, and would seek to defend both democracy and freedom of speech. But unfortunately, the woke movement has got to the point where they just want to silence anyone who doesn't follow what they consider to be the right way to think, the right way to speak. And I would say actually a lot of people are frightened to speak their mind because they're terrified of being cancelled, of being silenced by this woke mob, which seems to me to have defeated the whole purpose of the woke movement in the first place. Quite often you'll see people who disagree just accusing somebody of being a racist, a Nazi, a fascist, a fascist apologist or whatever, not because they actually are a Nazi or a fascist or a racist person or a homophobe or whatever, but just because they may have said something that was very vaguely offensive to that person. And a way of shutting someone down straight away is just to accuse them of being a racist or being a Nazi without necessarily having any proof at all that they are. And it just seems to be acceptable to throw these accusations at people without any proof whatsoever. And it seems that if certain social justice warriors or certain people in positions of influence or the media say something bad about somebody, they're automatically cancelled. They're automatically found guilty without trial, without a chance to defend themselves. They're just dismissed, and that's it. Their influence, their control, their ability to have any input or even a chance to defend themselves is just gone straight away. They're just assumed. There's no innocence until proven guilty. As far as cancel culture is concerned, you're just automatically guilty if you've been accused. So I've thought about how do you fight against this? How do you fight against people who are oppressive, who are intolerant, who are ready to destroy others and actually literally destroy their careers, destroy their lives because of an opinion or even possibly even a thoughtless remark that someone's made. Even when people have apologized, that's not good enough. And this seems to me to be somewhat unreasonable. There's no room for redemption, no room for forgiveness. And this seems to be, again, very intolerant, I would say. So I would think the only real cure for this is for people to actually stand up together against it, against this out of control wokeness. Because really what we're witnessing is the story of the emperor's new clothes. People can see that this is ridiculous in many instances. Obviously not all instances, but more and more it seems to be becoming more labyrinthine, more ridiculous, and extended further and further into every area of life. And I think most people actually aren't okay with it, but they're too afraid to speak up. Just like the people watching the emperor walking down the street naked. It takes maybe a little child to stand up and say, hey, look, the emperor's got no clothes. And in that story, that child caused everyone else to actually admit the truth that the emperor had no clothes on. And really, we could do with a bit of that, to be honest. And perhaps it takes people overcoming their fear of being cancelled, of being derided and humiliated and called all kinds of nasty names in order to actually regain some sort of common sense. I want to make it clear that I do not in any way want to support fascism, racism, anything of that nature at all. These are rather nasty and outdated and horrible attitudes that don't really have any place in our future at all. But at the same time, I think we do need to stand up for free speech, for people to express themselves, for people to, be able to make a silly joke without having their TV show cancelled or being thrown off the radio or whatever else it may be, or being, reported to their boss for some very minor infraction. And that's the kind of stuff that's happening now. So I like to think that we will live in a libertarian, democratic society for some time to come yet. I don't want to live in a totalitarian state where school children are dobbing me in for not having the right views, just like happened in Soviet Russia or under the Nazis or in Maoist China. And, neighbours denouncing each other and such like. And that is not of any benefit to society. And we need to stand up and preserve our freedoms, while at the same time protecting people from genuine hate speech and genuine hate crimes. Now, we already have laws in place to do that. So it doesn't really need an army of social justice warriors to self-appointedly go around harassing everybody. All it needs is for the laws that we already have to be maintained and observed. And people should be allowed to retain a sense of freedom, a sense of their own self, their own views, their own right to think whatever they want to think. So that's what I think about tolerance. And I'm prepared to tolerate the views of people I don't like, the views of more or less anybody, apart from those who are encouraging violence and hatred. You have to draw the line at that point. But other than that, if I want people to accept my viewpoint and tolerate my views, then I have to offer the same to them. And that is basically what it's all about. If you can't tolerate other people, how can you expect them to tolerate you? Thank you.